My name is Laura Willson. It used to be Laura Jensen, so I use that as my legal name, Laura Jensen Willson. I was born in 1920 on December 10th, and I'm sure it was a snowy trip from the doctor, for the doctor to come from our little town, which was 12 miles away, on a winter night to deliver a baby. And that's the way all of our family, I have 6 siblings, and we were all born at home, as were most of the children in our little valley we called Dane Valley. And that was because most of the people that lived there had come from Denmark. So we were called Dane Valley. And we didn't have a lot in my childhood, but there were hard times. We certainly didn't have like people have nowadays, but we lived on a farm, and we always had plenty to eat. We had chickens, we had cows, we had pigs, and my dad slaughtered them, and someone came to help him, and he went to help other people when they were going to butcher. And then of course we always had eggs, cream, butter, milk, all the good things to eat. Not a lot of fresh fruit, although in the wintertime Dad would buy boxes of apples and store them in the cellar. We walked to school 1.5 miles every day, unless the weather was really, really cold. Then my dad would hitch up the horses and the sled and take us to school, come and get us. We went to school in a little town of 1.5 miles away, and that little town was a post office and grocery store combined. And then there was I can't understand why, but there was a lumber company there, and then there was a pool hall, of course, and adjacent to that pool hall, or part of it, was a kind of a restaurant and a hotel. You could stay there all night if you wanted to, and I don't know when that was used. Certainly not for that purpose, in my eyes at least, while I knew about it. Let me see. Most of our life of society was right in Dane Valley. Anything that happened seemed to be connected with the church. We were 1.5 miles from the church. And 4th of July, which is the day I'm being recorded here, 4th of July we all went to the church, and there was we had picnic, and then the men played baseball and horseshoe pitching and things like that. The women sat around in chairs and visited and ate, and we had lots of things that we did together as a Dane Valley group. Let me see. When it came time to go to high school, we drove back and forth. My brothers, my 2 older brothers, would drive, and we would, when the weather got bad and so stormy in the wintertime, our folks rented place in town, and people in town just seemed to know, I guess, that these people from out of the country needed rooms in the wintertime for their kids, so they would we would rent a room or two, And then I, of course, had to be the cook. And we cooked on a little kerosene stove, 2 burners, kerosene stove. And Mom would send in all the groceries that she thought we needed for the week. And, you know, in the wintertime, we certainly didn't have a refrigerator, but we would put our milk out in the snowbanks, and so we'd have fresh milk. And then if Dad came to town for some reason in the middle of the week, he would replenish maybe with cookies or milk or things that he thought maybe we would need. And then he'd come for us on Friday. Let me see. I graduated from high school when I was 18.
17.
No, 17. I was 17. That's right. And my uncle and aunt from California came to visit Grandma and Grandpa. Oh, my Grandma and Grandpa lived right across the road from us. And we always took milk over to them. I should tell you a little bit more about them. They, Grandpa farmed too, but one day we saw my dad come carrying his father across the field, and we knew something was the matter. And Grandpa had gotten to the place where he didn't feel comfortable doing the farm work, so Dad was on the tractor and Grandpa got on the drill just to have something to do, and he was looking to see if it was dropping the seed right into the ground, and he stooped over and stuck his leg out, which got caught in the wheel. And of course, with those loud old tractors, my dad didn't hear him screaming. So that leg had to be amputated. First, they tried to save the knee, but they couldn't do that. So he just had a little stump and got along well with crutches after that. But anyway, we kids, it was always our job to take milk to Grandma and Grandpa every day. And we would get rewarded. Grandma had 2 kinds of cookies. One was a ginger cookie or a molasses cookie, and one was the white sugar cookie. But they were the same cookie cutter every time, but we would usually get a cookie for bringing her milk. And I remember one time she said to me, do you want a cookie? And so I said, I don't care. She said, well, if you don't care, I won't get one for you. I learned my lesson to not be so carefree. Anyway, I thought, well, that wasn't really fair. But anyway, we had fun with them. But you know, one thing I regret so much, I don't remember ever really talking much with Grandma. She never told me about her life as a child or anything like that. I think she came from Denmark. And I wish as I grew older that I wish she had known that I would like to know about, and wish I had known enough to ask. But I have one kind of funny one. My mom did so much work for Grandma and Grandpa too. House cleaning, fall and spring house cleaning, and she would go in between times, and one day my mom was a little overweight, but certainly not obese in any way, but a little plump. She was over on the floor scrubbing with her hands and knees with her rear end toward Grandpa, and then in Danish, she's scrubbing the floor, and in Danish, he asks, how much do you weigh now, Christine? She said, I almost picked up the water and threw it in his face. But anyway, I remember Grandpa always, after he had his leg cut off, he always had candy for us when we'd come over. He'd give us a piece of candy. And they died when I was probably in my early 20s, yeah, both of them. But anyway, when I graduated from high school, my uncle and aunt from California came to visit Grandma and Grandpa. My Uncle Elmer was Grandpa's son. Grandma and Grandpa had been married before, and they had lost their partners. So they did not have children together, but they both had large families. So Uncle Elmer and Aunt Etta were both hairdressers. And you know, Grandpa was saying he couldn't see very well, but we had to laugh because my aunt had a little silver chain around her ankle and he could see that. Wondered what that was, so we said, Grandpa's sight isn't so bad after all, if he can see this little chain around her ankle, wondering what that's about. But they talked to my parents and asked if they could take me with them to California and help them out. They would just, well, my folks thought, I guess, that would be a good idea, or better for me. I know my mom often said, well, I don't know why my girls both had to leave so far away, but we had 3 girls, but one was small yet. But I went with Uncle Elmer and Aunt Yetta, not yet, Etta. And I became friends with a girl whose parents used to live in Dane Valley and had moved to California. And she had gone to business college and had a good job. So I decided I'd go to business college, which I did. Now, there wasn't any specific time that you had to be in that college, but in order to graduate, you had to be able to type so many words per minute, take shorthand and transcribe so fast and things like that. So I graduated in a few months, a couple months I think, or 3 months, yeah. Because I had taken those things in high school, so I really had a head start. And one thing I remember, you know, we always were, I think it was just drilled down in us from our family to be honest. I don't care if it hurt or not, be honest, be truthful. Well, one day at school, teachers stood up after a test and said, Miss Jensen was the only one who got 100 in this test. And I thought, well, that's kind of nice. And then I went home. I should have left it at that. Went home and looked through the test and found an error. So, of course, the next day I went to the teacher and I said, I really didn't get 100. I found this error. And one of the fellows that was at school, he said, you are so crazy. Do you think she liked to have you point out that she was wrong? No, I don't. That was just crazy to do that. But in my heart, I knew I didn't deserve that praise for being the first. So that kind of has stuck with me. And several times through life, other things, we were taught the biblical ways.